When I first started giving these talks, I said, if you have type 1 diabetes, don't ever even think about carb restriction or the ketogenic diet. So I've changed my tune about that. There are now a publication authored by David Ludwig from Harvard to show that carbohydrate restricted diets may be optimal for those even with type 1 diabetes. So a little bit about ketones in general. Ketones, we know, are energy substrates, and now more recently in the last 4 or 5 years, we come to understand them as a powerful signaling molecule that functions almost like a hormone. There's a ketone receptor. There's several ketone receptors. Ketones function as histone deacetylase inhibitors. Ketones function to suppress inflammatory pathways that in a way that's completely independent of their metabolic function. So they have important signaling properties. Clinical ketosis is defined as a blood level of ketones that's above 0.5 millimolar. So that takes about, if you stopped eating now, if you're not on a ketogenic diet regularly, if you stopped eating now, it takes about 24 hours for your blood ketones to really get up into the clinical ketosis range. So you could achieve it with fasting, and if you're low carb, you would get into ketosis faster if you're doing intermittent fasting. Some people do urine ketones. That's okay. It's not optimal, but a urine ketone level of 15 milligrams per deciliter on the keto stick that you can buy at any CVS or Walgreens will correlate to about a 0.5 millimolar ketone level. Nutritional ketosis, I define it as a dietary strategy to elevate ketones into this range, and that typically involves a carbohydrate consumption of fibrous carbohydrates, non-starch, non-sugar, of less than 10% of the total diet, and generally speaking, 25 to 50 grams of carbohydrates. That is the level where you start to get into nutritional ketosis and start to get some of the benefits of nutritional ketosis. Ketoacidosis, and this comes up a lot with the medical students, or if I teach at a clinical conference, all the hands go up, well, what about ketoacidosis? Ketoacidosis is a very specific metabolic derangement associated primarily with the absence or insufficient amount of insulin in the body. So without insulin, when our ketones level rise, that actually releases a small amount of insulin, which helps your body fine-tune ketogenesis in the liver. So without insulin, we have runaway ketogenesis. And in the context of high glucose, high ketones can be very detrimental to health and create an acidotic situation that, if it's not corrected with fluid, electrolytes, and insulin injection, will lead to coma and death. So so even, I was going to say, even people with type 1 diabetes can successfully do the ketogenic diet if they manage their insulin correctly. Keto adaptation is a time-dependent physiological adaptation to using fatty acids and ketones for energy. So we know that the more you do the ketogenic diet or carbohydrate restriction, the more you adapt, the easier it gets, and the more benefits you derive from it, from those adaptations. And the last thing I want to highlight is exogenous ketones, because this term did really not exist years ago, like 10 years ago, and now they're on the market. I get a lot of questions about it, and there are a lot of research being done. I think there's at least a half dozen registered clinical trials on clinicaltrials.gov right now looking at exogenous ketones.
Stated and summarized, easy to share with loved ones. The description below the title for this video has these summary points.